Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about cryptocurrency. As you all know, in 2009, Bitcoin was created. And since then, the Bitcoin price has really gone exponential. In 2013, just a few years later, Ethereum was also created. The difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin is that Ethereum is a decentralized computer where you can create your own contracts and run essentially arbitrary code. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is much narrower in its use case and is created primarily as a decentralized currency. Since the creation of Bitcoin and Ethereum, we've all been waiting for the killer crypto application. What is going to be the application that everyone downloads on their phone and uses on a daily basis? At first, the idea for Bitcoin was that it itself would become a currency, and that would be the killer app. Everyone would have their own Bitcoin wallet, and they could transact in it just like they transact with cash or credit card today. They could walk into a store, pick up some items off the shelf, and pay for it in Bitcoin. And while you can do that today, the number of people doing that and the number of vendors supporting that are quite few. And although you can go to some vendors today and purchase items with Bitcoin, the vast majority of vendors in the world still don't accept Bitcoin. And the reason for that is because it's still not a very good user experience. For Ethereum, we've kind of seen the same thing. And Ethereum had an even bigger vision. The idea behind Ethereum was to create a decentralized computer that could run arbitrary smart contracts where the results could be trusted because it would be very difficult for a single party to manipulate it. It would be a censorship-resistant, decentralized global computer. And Ethereum has created that. But even with all the additional power that Ethereum built on top of Bitcoin, we still haven't seen that killer application for crypto today yet. As an enthusiast in cryptocurrency and having owned some cryptocurrency, I've been watching this industry for years since it first started. And I've been watching and been very curious about the developments. We've seen all types of applications, of course, new currencies, and from currencies also exchanges. But on the other hand, we've also seen attempts to create new governments, new identities on Ethereum. But still, even with all this development, all this money and capital that's gone into crypto, we still haven't seen wide adoption yet. To be fair, I think most people primarily care about the prices of cryptocurrencies, and it's really more about speculation at this point than actually buying something that you could use and would improve the quality of your life. And I think that there are a couple reasons why. Ethereum was built on smart contracts being law. The fact that whatever the smart contract says is what's going to happen on Ethereum. And that's a little bit incompatible with the outside world. The reason is this creates actually a very poor user experience. Can you imagine if you went to the bank, you open up a bank account, and you lost your debit card, if you lost access to all of your funds? That's exactly what happens in Ethereum in Bitcoin. You could have 100 Bitcoin or 100 Ethereum, but if you lose your private key, you've lost those coins. This is both a pro and a con. Pro meaning that all you need to access your funds is this private key. You don't need to share your identity, you don't need to prove anything else. But the con is that the private key is typically very, very long and very complex and hard for most people to remember. And that's why most companies in the world, including financial institutions, have customer service, because losing your debit card, being locked out of your online bank account is a very common occurrence. It could happen to anyone for a variety of reasons. The second issue with Bitcoin and Ethereum is that the cost of transactions can be really, really high. Even though Ethereum has done a lot to lower the cost of transactions today, still, the dollar cost of doing these transactions is still quite high, and it's always going to be high relative to other solutions. And that's because Ethereum essentially runs as a single-threaded distributed computer. That means that every computer on the Ethereum blockchain has to coordinate with each other and duplicate a lot of computation. Whereas in a centralized system, it's possible to build computers and algorithms that execute much quicker and much more efficiently because there's less coordination that's required. And although decentralization sounds really good, it comes into question, what aspects of our life really need to be centralized? Owning cars, owning houses, does that really need to be centralized? Spending your money, does that need to be decentralized? What types of systems or data do we work with each and every day that really needs to be decentralized? I would argue that must be a very small subset of the things that we interact with. In most cases, we actually want things to be centralized. For example, if you buy a car from BMW, and there's an issue with your car, you want that company to take responsibility for it. So it makes sense that they track all your warranty information. There's no need for BMW to take your information and put it on the blockchain because that information is only really relevant to them, and they're gonna leverage it to inform their customer service for you. So there's no reason that it needs to be out there in such a distributed manner. Similarly, for your car registration, You do that with your government. In the state that you live, you go and you have to register your car, pay some tax, and they care that they're collecting that tax and know who the owner of that car is, every year. And there's not really a lot of reason to make that decentralized either, because the government is really the gatekeeper there, and they make sure that every vehicle is registered. And if not, you're gonna get pulled over and then you're gonna have to pay a fine. So again, in that case, there's not really a whole lot that taking that data and putting it in a decentralized manner would really offer you, either as the consumer or the government. The last major issue with Ethereum is that it's totally disconnected and siloed from the real world. It's very difficult to get information into Ethereum blockchain, and it's very hard to take information into Ethereum blockchain and actually have it enforced and reflected in real life. For inbound data, people have developed systems called oracles, and oracles work by taking real world data and trying to post it into Ethereum by sending a transaction. So they might take, for example, the price of gold and send that data into Ethereum. The problem with that is each time you send data into Ethereum, it's quite expensive. So the rate at which you can update the price of gold is limited by your cost. The second thing is, although the Ethereum blockchain itself is secure, adding an oracle creates another vulnerability. It's another weak point where data could be manipulated. And although the smart contract might be executing correctly, if the price is manipulated, if the oracle can't be trusted, or the people feeding data to the oracle can't be trusted, then whatever is executed in the smart contract could be executed incorrectly. And the opposite is also true. Taking a result in an Ethereum blockchain and having it reflected in the real world is also a real challenge. For example, one day you could have your property deeds on the Ethereum blockchain, and you may be able to trade property deeds just like you trade cryptocurrency today. The problem is, even if the Ethereum blockchain says you own a particular piece of property, let's say it's real estate, you still need someone to go out there and enforce that ownership, meaning you still need police or military or essentially, some type of judicial system that will in the real world enforce what's reflected in the blockchain. And right now there's no one that can really do that, right? In the real world, if you own a piece of property and it's recorded by the government, if someone else comes in and tries to claim that property as theirs, or if you have a tenant that's not paying, you can go to the government and you can say, hey, I own this property, I need you to enforce that ownership, and they'll go ahead and do that, right? The government is not just a set of laws, it's not just ownership, it's also real world enforcement of that. A lot of people say government is a monopoly on violence, and that's very true. No matter what the Ethereum blockchain says, if you want those results reflected in real life, you need someone to take action and agree that the Ethereum blockchain is what matters, is the primary source of truth. And you need someone to actually go out and execute orders based on that. And right now we don't have that. We really just have a computer with no outside enforcement. As Ethereum has developed, we've also seen the creation of DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations, and they function kind of like governments. And the creation of them is an admission that smart contracts on their own are not enough to convey and fulfill the desires of human beings. There needs to be interpretation, there needs to be law, there needs to be voting and a government that sits on top of smart contracts and actually dictates how smart contracts should behave, changed, modified, maintained, or even interpreted. In most cases, DAOs are essentially a voting system where different people are assigned different voting power based on certain measurable metrics. For example, you could be part of a DAO where they have a governance token. And if you have that governance token, that's going to weight the power of your vote. So someone that has 100 tokens is going to have 100 times the voting power of someone that only holds one token for that DAO. These are novel approaches, and they create the ability for smart contracts and smart contract ecosystems to be more flexible and be more forgiving to human interaction with them, and to change and evolve as needed to suit human users. So while Ethereum is really good at smart contract to smart contract interaction, it's really hard for Ethereum applications to really be integrated into our lives because they're missing the input element and the output element. For example, even with exchanges that operate primarily as smart contract to smart contract, ERC20 tokens are all smart contracts. There are plenty of decentralized exchanges on Ethereum where you can trade contract to contract very easily without the need for a third party to intervene. You find that most of these exchanges are actually very inefficient. One of the most popular exchanges in Ethereum is called Uniswap. And the way that it works is that it's called a decentralized exchange. It means that no third party has to participate for two people or multiple people to go and purchase and trade tokens. The way that it works is kind of like a vending machine where you put products in it and people come in and buy it. And based on their buying, an algorithm decides on what the price is. However, this is actually a very inefficient system because most of the time, the price of those items are mispriced. Uniswap doesn't have a way to price items correctly. So all it does is it relies on other people to come in and trade against it to set the price. Most often that looks like having a product that's priced too cheaply. People can come in, they can make profits. So they trade with Uniswap, buy assets at under the real cost and fix the price on Uniswap. So essentially, most trades on Uniswap are happening because assets are mispriced, which is not what you want in a well-functioning market. So what does this mean for the future of cryptocurrency, for Ethereum and for Bitcoin? Well, I think there's still a lot of promise in Ethereum and Bitcoin, and I think that we're still gonna have more and more adoption in the future. But the typical use cases that we're gonna see may be limited to just what we've already seen, which is the use of it as a currency. And honestly, the cryptocurrency that's adopted the most might be central bank digital currencies, which is pretty ironic because it's the antithesis of why Bitcoin was created in the first place. Bitcoin was created to create a censorship-resistant, anti-government form of currency, something that need to be and couldn't be ruled by government. However, what we're finding is that to get mass adoption, it may be that we need governments to come and step in and actually create that use case, give it enough support and enforcement for cryptocurrency to really take off. There's a lot of benefits for governments for implementing a central bank currency. The first among them being an incredible ability to track the spending and amounts of currency in their system. Blockchain, if anything, creates a great history of all transactions that have ever happened. So it's very easy for any third party to look at the blockchain and actually reconstruct the flow of funds. This is something that governments that are concerned about money laundering or people evading sanctions care a lot about. The other thing, unfortunately, is taxation and monetary controls. Right now, if the government wants to print money and distribute it to the citizens, they rely on third parties such as banks to help them. With cryptocurrency, they would have access to the bank accounts of all their citizens directly, and it'd be possible for them to do stimulus checks direct to the people without having to use a third party. The flip side of this is if they wanted to tax people, they could very easily track funds and access bank accounts directly. So all of this is to say that the incentive for governments to use cryptocurrency is to have and give them stricter, tighter, and more control over their monetary policy, over their currency. But who knows, if the government starts adopting a central bank digital currency, that may open the floodgates for additional uses and integrations in our lives. For example, as I said, one of the biggest issues with cryptocurrency is its enforcement. If governments are going to create a central bank digital currency, that's going to seed the idea that the government is actually enforcing what's said on the blockchain. And property deeds and vehicle deeds and other contracts might start moving on to the blockchain as governments start trusting this technology and integrating into their laws and enforcement. So while it's been a few years since these cryptocurrencies have been created and there's been a lot of hype and boom and bust in these markets, we're still waiting for that killer app. And we had hoped that it would happen without the government, but ironically, it may be that once government starts actually getting involved in cryptocurrency, that's when we're really going to see these killer apps take place. So these are my thoughts on cryptocurrency. I'd love to hear what you think about my thoughts and what you also think the future of cryptocurrency looks like. Please let me know in the comments what you think. And if you like this video, please subscribe and like it. Thank you so much. See you all in the next video.